Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, "My Neighbor Cut My Trees." About a month after I moved into my new house, my neighbor cut half a dozen old growth trees 12 to 23 inch diameter in a cold weather climate near the property line. I had a survey done, $800, and discovered that all the trees cut were on my property. The owner of the house is a real estate agent married to a private contractor, so I suspect they knew what they were doing and were trying to take advantage of my ignorance. I have their email address from the HOA and I am wondering if I should write a demand letter and send it certified mail, email and ask what is going on, or hire a lawyer. State laws, NH, suggest that I am entitled to 3 times the value of the trees, but I don't even know how to value the trees. I wouldn't have cut them, now I have to look at my neighbor's house instead of trees. Please help. Update: I met with a lawyer and gave him my version of events along with the estimates from my arborist and the plot from my surveyor. The value of the timber makes the theft a felony in this state, and since the trees were within 55 feet of a protected shoreland, they will likely have to pay a hefty administrative fine to the state for not getting the proper permits before cutting the tree. We know they didn't get the permit because it would have required a survey and shown that the trees they wanted to cut were on my property. The lawyer is familiar with the lady of the house from her real estate dealings, mostly closings and title work, and said she is a pain in the butt and that she doesn't like to admit fault. It's going to be a long slog. And a user in the comments said, "Lawyer and arborist now, you are talking 6-figure damages for mature old growth trees." And another user said, "With the kind of damages being talked about, you could potentially replace some of the trees with trees of a similar age or fund a major improvement to your home to make up for the lost value from the trees." And then OP responded, "They are using my property to heat their home. They would have to reimburse me for a few years of heating costs. I heat with propane, so the wood is useless to me, and put down trees that would grow to 50 to 70 feet tall in my lifetime, so it is a stretch. 3-year-old trees sell for a couple $100 each, and from what I am reading there are numerous cases where single, well-placed trees on private properties are valued at tens of thousands of dollars. Once I know the value of the trees from a landscape perspective, it will be easier to say, but I agree with other redditors that this is not do-it-yourself." And another user said, "Tree value can be established by an arborist, be prepared to hire one for a valuation, and this is definitely not do-it-yourself like someone else said." And another fella said, "So glad you posted this because I basically was about to. A guy came through on an easement to game land that cuts through my uncle's property today and cut a bunch of his trees with his mower all along the trail. I will be taking pictures and counting all the trees tomorrow for him." And guys, I'm kind of wondering, how the F can you cut a tree with a lawnmower? But then again, I suppose the person in the comments means some sort of little, very small tree. Update number 2, my neighbor cut my trees. It has been a month and we have finally gotten a detailed drawing of landmarks from the surveyor to confirm that the surveyor got the lines plotted correctly, comprehensive estimates from a landscaper based on photos provided by the previous owner of the house, and timber values from an arborist. Now that everything is all squared away in that regard, we are getting ready to submit a demand letter. The one question my lawyer asked is if I should include a value in the demand letter or if I should invite them to contact my lawyer for further details. What would be the pros and cons of each approach? And a user in the comments said, "Absolutely include a dollar value and throw everything into it, even things that you're not sure of. That sets the starting point of negotiation, which is valuable. If you say $50,000 and they say $25,000, then they are being very unreasonably by asking for half the value, but if they say $25,000 and they say $50,000, then you're being unreasonably by asking for twice the value." This is all mental, it's not like a judge or jury is ever going to see this part. I would also mention that they probably committed a felony, but don't make any threats about turning them in, let that part just be implied. And finally, say that they should consult an attorney, that helps them realize that it might get really expensive for them. And the last update to the treelaw story. Today, they settled with me for $35,000 after legal fees. So guys, yeah, there was no fancy long ending here, but in the end, the neighbors definitely got what they deserved for cutting down the trees. Anyway, if you have watched until here and enjoyed treelaw stories or whatever else I read, I would be really happy if you could like the video and post some star emojis in the comments if you enjoy my content. Thank you so much in advance, the support lately has been even better than usual, we often break the 1000 like barrier, which is awesome. Thank you so much for your dedicated support. And the next one is titled, Neighbor alleges my dog came into his yard and bit his dog. 9 or 10 days later the dog has been euthanized and I am cited. I live in a neighborhood where everyone has more than one dog. My yard is fenced on all sides with chain link. The neighbors behind me own 2 dogs, 1 medium and 1 large. I have 4 dogs, which is legal within the code for the county I am in. This post concerns my smallest dog, who is a 25-pound terrier mix. My dogs and his dogs both use a pet door to come and go through their respective yards when no one is home. 11 days ago I came home and found my small dog SD in my house, covered in cuts and superficial scrapes and bleeding. I cleaned him up, checked my other 3 dogs to see if they were injured or had blood on them, no, and then checked the backyard. SD took me to the back fence where the neighbor's big dog greeted us. She was friendly but had blood on her face. I thought it looked like my dog had tried to stick his head under a section of the chain link fence and been bitten or scratched by the big dog. Later that night, the neighbors, a man and his adult son, came over. They alleged the following. A. My little dog was in their backyard and attacked their medium dog, causing puncture wound injuries to his rear and tail that had to be treated by a vet. B. No one was at home at the time, but neighbors witnessed this attack and also saw an unknown blonde dog in the yard, which they assume is mine. I have no blonde or yellow dogs. C. He has been in their yard lots of times over the years but didn't want to complain because they wanted to be good neighbors, so I was never told about it. They don't know how he gets in their yard. They demanded A. I pay their vet bill. I said I would if they give me a copy. B. To walk my dog away from my property because they have some kind of training expertise and have experience with vicious dogs. I said I would think about it. Over the next week I got updates on the bitten dog. 2 days ago the son emailed me asking for payment of the vet bill. I said I had the payment and offered to meet in our yards. They did not show up. About an hour later the older man knocked on my door and told me that the bitten dog was not doing well and they were taking it back to the vet in 1 day, that they might have to euthanize it. He declined to take the cash for the vet bill when I requested a receipt, which made me uneasy. 2 hours later the son came to the door. It was dark by that time of evening and he was weeping, and the encounter made me really uncomfortable. He said that the dog had been euthanized. I felt very weird about the whole thing since now I was hearing different stories. I asked that they only contact me in writing about the matter and said goodbye. The next day I sent an email expressing condolences and asking again for everything to be done in writing from now on. I requested a list of expenses they want paid and documentation of them. I did not write this, but I wanted to make sure I had a clear timeline and list because the details kept changing every time I spoke to one of them. The response was that I treated them heartlessly by asking him not to come to the door anymore and communicate in writing only. He was pissed off that I didn't offer enough sympathy for him. They had tried being good neighbors, but that they would now involve the authorities. That night, animal control came and gave me 2 citations. Number 1, unrestrained dog, and number 2, property damage / nuisance dog. I have a court date in magistrate in a few weeks. My questions: if I am found guilty, how likely is it that my dog will be declared a dangerous dog? This is my biggest concern. I cannot tell from the code under what circumstances this might happen, and it seems like it is up to the judge. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened, so there's no pattern. Number 2. Witnesses said SD was not the only dog in the yard, so is it reasonable defense to say that any of the other mystery dogs could have been the biters and it is not clear who attacked? Number 3. If the neighbor doesn't bring a witness to the hearing, can he submit statements from them as evidence? Number 4. Should I consult a criminal attorney? Number 5. Is there anything I should be gathering now for my defense? Statements of support from other neighbors? Vet testimony about my SD? I really don't know how my dog could be getting in and out of the yard without anyone seeing or even realizing he is gone. I know dogs can climb if motivated enough, and since we learned of this alleged incident, he has not been in the yard unattended at any time. The dog door stays closed all day and I supervise all the dogs in the yard. I also have plans to get a tall, more secure privacy fence about 3 feet inside the current fence to add security no matter the outcome, and I plan to get quotes this week. Is it likely that this effort will be taken into consideration during the hearing? What about if I proactively enroll SD in obedience class? Any other proactive steps I should be taking? I really appreciate any advice you can impart. This is so stressful. I am sad for my neighbor and scared for my dog. ETA, I am calling a lawyer today. The report from which the citations were issued says that the officer met with the neighbor and accepted hearsay evidence about what the other neighbors told him. Apparently the AC did not speak with these alleged witnesses. The report also characterizes my spouse and I as uncooperative. We initially did not speak to the officer, but she never even left her vehicle and sat in our driveway the whole time. She called a supervisor who came to our door, and then we went out and spoke with them. She had a very soft voice and I had to get really close to the van to hear her. One part of the report says, I attempted to talk to her, she just ignored me and walked towards her residence. I did not hear the officer say anything at all. What the hell? They also asked if we were familiar with the incident and I said I have nothing to say about it. I thought that was the smart thing to do, maybe not. Huh. And a user in the comments said, it sounds like there's basically no evidence that your dog did the attacking other than the neighbor claiming that they saw it. I cannot imagine that would be good enough. They shouldn't accept statements from people who are not present, as that is hearsay. The judge might accept notarized affidavits, but I doubt it. You really should get a lawyer because this has already progressed into weird territory and it's impossible for internet strangers to say how things might go without knowing a lot more. And you know guys, I gotta say, when it comes to keeping dogs as pets here in Thailand, it is really a very weird situation. It seems like not many people really have dogs as pets, but they really enjoy feeding stray dogs. Around 2016/2017, I was living a bit further away from the city in a so-called Muban, which is basically a gated community, and I was often wondering why the hell, especially in the evening, you could always see a huge gang of dogs, maybe around 10 to 15 dogs, roaming around in the streets, and it does not look like they belong to anyone. However, at some point I figured out that some old grandma really enjoyed feeding these dogs, so they always came back to the neighborhood. I probably don't have to tell you guys that this gave me a lot of anxiety. And the next one is an update to the neighbor dog story. It has been an interesting and super stressful experience. Since the last post, I have put up a 6-foot tall privacy fence inside the chain link fence for additional security and peace of mind. That has actually been really nice. I feel like I can be in my backyard without being hassled anymore. It also keeps the neighbors' dogs from barking at me whenever I go outside. I discussed the incident with my vet and a certified dog trainer, and both have agreed to testify to my dog's temperament. I also enrolled the dog in question in dog daycare for an additional source that can verify he is not aggressive to other dogs. We did not hear from the neighbors again. They did not respond to our requests for documentation. When I got the report, I learned the names of the witnesses. I was casually discussing the whole thing with the receptionist at my vet, who is also a neighbor of mine, and she asked who they were. I told her, and she told me that the person in the report was actually a convicted felon who has served a year in prison for animal cruelty. He is the one who claims that he saw my dog attacking the other dog, and I wonder if the complaining neighbor knows that his only eyewitness to the alleged incident was put away for shooting a neighbor's dog. I am seriously wondering if something happened between the dogs and the neighbor and he is trying to cover his ass by blaming me. We called a lawyer who had been recommended to us by a friend who practices law in a different county. When we spoke to her about the charges we faced, she advised that she did not think we actually needed a lawyer and that the charges were likely to be dismissed if we decided to go to trial, but that if we pled nolo con terra, we were likely to just get a fine. She said we were doing everything right and to call her back if we go to trial. I misidentified the court that I had to appear in. It was recorder's court, not magistrate court. My arraignment for the 2 charges was today. It was basically like traffic court with all the animal control cases in one courtroom. There were probably 30 cases before the judge. The solicitor for the county called each case and stated the charges, and the defendants each entered their pleas. Many of them were the same charges that I got: animal at large and destruction of property, and all of them got the recommended fine, $250 or a reduced fine. But when my case was called, the solicitor said that the victim had called her and requested both restitution from me and that my dog or dogs, unclear, be removed from me. They said it was too dangerous for me to have my dogs because my house is near a school and the dog in question might bite someone. No one else had this kind of commentary on their case, not even the cases where a dog bit a human. When I heard that, I got very scared. I was planning on pleading nolo to both charges because I just wanted this whole thing to be over with. But I didn't want to risk my dogs being taken away if I didn't contest the charges, and I had no idea how likely that was. It seemed totally non-proportional to the charges, but I was taken off guard. The solicitor obviously had lots of cases that day and only had a few minutes to review each one. She did not lie about the facts exactly, but she seriously glazed over things and generalized. She said that my dog came into the neighbor's yard and killed their dog. I corrected her and said that the dog was euthanized by its owner 9 days after the alleged attack, and she said that one of the witnesses stated that she heard barking and came outside to look. I corrected her that according to the animal control report, the neighbor heard barking and looked out her window and saw what she thought was my dog 30 yards away behind a tree line. If I didn't speak up, I don't think the judge would have read anything in front of her that closely. The prosecutor did not say what she would be seeking against me for a nolo or guilty plea, and I was afraid of the threat of having my dog taken, so I initially pled not guilty. I think that actually helped me because it got me a few minutes of one-on-one time with the prosecutor when it was time to discuss setting a court date. I told her that the facts she presented do not match the report that the citations are based on. I said that I didn't think she could win at trial based solely on the eyewitness testimony that keeps changing. I asked if she would seek to have my dog taken. I showed her the work we have done to assure that my dog cannot ever escape again and that it is well socialized contrary to the stupid neighbor's testimony. I mentioned that the complained neighbor had a brown dog as well, which she didn't know. She said the neighbor's dog is dead. I said, no, they have another dog matching the description given by the witness as well. I think that threw her too. She also seemed surprised to hear that I attempted to give the neighbor cash for the vet bills already. In the end, she said she would seek a $500 fine minus restitution if I pled nolo. I said okay, I changed my plea to nolo. The judge threw out the rest of the fine and I have to pay the complainant restitution for his vet bills. I fully expected to do this via some kind of civil action, so I'm fine doing it now. The one thing this has taught me is to always make sure I can see my dogs at all times. Dog doors are convenient, but I don't trust my neighbors not to be crazy. And now that I know the star witness in the case has a record of killing neighborhood dogs, I have even more incentive to be on guard. The new fence line is completely visible to me from the back door and I have a lock on the gate. I am also installing cameras so I can always see what the dogs are up to and if anything happens when I'm not there. Thanks for all the advice. I hope that my post and this recap can help someone else facing animal code violations. There was very little out there to reference and we had no idea what to expect. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.